afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an assistant professor of marketing from LKCSB, and I'm glad that I got a chance to introduce our valuable speaker here. So today we are delighted to have with us Mr. Samy Mardolker, a managing director of Clear M&C Saatchi. So he's going to talk about today building your marketing strategy using Lego blocks. Mr. Samy Mardolker manages business for Clear, a marketing strategy consultancy, and is routinely facilitating marketing strategy sessions. And also, he's an accredited Lego serious play facilitator. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Samy Mardolker.
So guys, if we can have the first 3 rows filled up as much as possible. There's some seats here. I don't think we have any more people walking in, so feel free to occupy this. It really helped me coordinate the session a little bit more, so I don't have to go all the way up to the last desk. And I think, like I was telling some of you guys, I've stolen enough Lego blocks from my daughter to entertain at least 30 people. So if I look around the first 3 rows, I think we should be able to get you the Legos for all 3 rows. So can I have some of these seats filled up? I have some seats there, some empty seats in the 3rd row. Okay, on last count, there were only about 2 marketers in the room. A few more people have walked in, so I'll do a show of hands again. How many marketers do we have in the room? 4 or 5 still. There are, like I was telling the rest of the gang as well, there are maybe 1 or 2 exercises that are a bit more related to the marketing function, but we all agree that those are very smart people, probably know a bit about the marketing function as well, so I'm sure you'll be able to handle this. Okay? So, let's start. So like the introduction said, I run the business for Clear. We are a strategy consulting firm looking after business, brand, experience, innovation kind of challenges. I have my lovely colleagues on the last row, and after the session, if you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out to them. I've spoken at this forum several times, and in the past I've always had a healthy mix of working professionals as well as students. So I don't see, you're all looking young by the way, but you don't see too many students I feel. So pardon me for a philosophical start to the session, which was well intended for a student kind of audience as well, at least a bit of a mix. And I've made this observation. Let me ask you to think of sort of the most common issues we face in life. Okay? And when I think of the most common sort of inevitable issues we face in life, I think they are all about how do you manage money, how do you manage emotions, and how do you manage people, right? But the observation I feel I've made is that, interestingly, there's no intervention or advice prior. Stuff happens only when you land in a problem. So when you're bankrupt, when you're stressed, when you have broken relationships, you'll get a ton of help. But you're almost not trained to cope with money, people, emotions, relationships prior to anything going south. Likewise, I thought the most common business in a business situation in businesses is meetings, right? I think based on whatever little interactions I've had with my clients last 20 over years, I think 50 to 60% of their working time is spent in meetings, and that's probably an understatement, right? And yet, I don't think anybody gets good advice on how to run or conduct those meetings. Now, it's too presumptuous to say that all of those meetings are very effective and are very successful. We know that they are not, because bad decisions are made, bad marketing decisions are made. So obviously something is not working well with those meetings. And what I do see is that at the very basic level, we are only prescribing etiquettes in terms of how to run these meetings. That's probably as far as we go. So you will be told to arrive on time, to be nice to others, to give them a right. So conclusion, bad meetings impact every stage of the marketing process. And the way I look at it is, if you look at the start of the marketing process, and I see that as just setting the context, where you kind of try to understand or unpack what the marketing issue is. Then you go into the next phase and you start collecting the information or looking for that insight that will help you solve for that challenge. And maybe you chance upon 2 or 3 routes to solve that challenge. So you get into a strategy session to figure out, okay, I know where I am, I know where to go, which route should I take? And then ultimately, once you have firmed up on a route, you go into the next phase of realization, where you try and figure out, okay, how do I make this happen? And in each of these phases, there are meetings, there are discussions that somehow I think are not as impactful. And they can be if you use the right tools. So now I'm going to walk you through each of these phases, very briefly introduce tools. I'm not going to talk about all the tools. I'm only going to talk about Lego Serious Play as a tool here. And that should give you a good example of the fact that there are many such tools available at your disposal. It takes very little effort to learn it. And once you learn it, you will be better prepared for your next meeting. And that's the whole point of today's discussion. To appreciate that meetings are really important, to appreciate that we don't put much thought in terms of how to conduct these meetings, and to realize that there are lots of tools available, and with the right tool and the right facilitation mode, you can get a lot more out of these sessions. Okay? So let's look at context, where we try and clarify what the problem is. I think in this situation, more often than not, we never ever, or very rarely, take an internal perspective of the problem. Take a situation when your sales are dipping. You call the North, East, West, and South sales managers for a business meeting. 90% chance they'll start talking about competitor activity, changing consumer trend, economic situation, and so on. Very rarely would they table up even for discussion that maybe we are not working very well together, right? And I'm not saying that's the issue every time sales dip. What I'm trying to say is that in most such meetings, internal issues are not played up. We almost assume that everything internal is going really fine. How do you bring that up? There are tools for that. When you get a chance, read about this case, teaching smart people how to learn. Smart people, all of us are smart. Very often, more than otherwise, tend to get into defensive reasoning. And defensive reasoning is all about external factors, right? It's about this guy said this thing happened, and that thing didn't go well. It's never about you, and it's never about how you behave. And such kind of reasoning is what gets us into trouble. I'm not talking only about meetings here, but like I said, part of my session was to talk to students here as well. This can help us in our day-to-day lives as well. How often do we sort of take the balcony stance and look at ourselves in hindsight at the dance floor and ask ourselves, did we behave well? How did we react? Is that how we think we should have reacted, and so on? Those are topics that you really discuss, and a deep facilitation technique can unpack those issues for us and result in a much more smoother working relationship. It often tends to be very heavily emotionally charged, but once you diffuse and you get past that situation, you will have a much better view of whether you have an internal issue to start with, and if you have, how do you tackle that? The next phase, like I said, is collecting information to solve that problem. And more often than not, there is a ton of information that an organization has internal as well. It's just that I don't see as much information sharing happening. So these days, working with cross-functional teams is inevitable in a way. You're always sitting with sales, marketing, finance, R&D, and all of that. And I doubt there is as much information sharing as there should be. Various reasons for that. Sometimes people don't know they have the information. Sometimes they judge that they may have it, but maybe it's not worthwhile sharing. Sometimes they are worried about credibility. Sometimes they're just too lazy. And more often than not, there's lots of internal, should I use the word, politics that may prevent you from sharing. Sometimes they want to own the relationship because they feel that that's what will get them the security. But there are tools and techniques which bring up this issue and hit it in the face for the team to make them aware that information sharing is so critical. So I just chanced upon this digital tool. It's called Mount Everest simulation, where the team is made to play a game about scaling Mount Everest. Each of them is given a specific role. So someone could be a photographer, someone could be a doctor, another person could be a fitness specialist, environmentalist, and so on. So each of them, of course, have signed up for the mission to climb up Mount Everest, but each of them also have a personal objective to fulfill. The photographer might love to stay on base camp 0 because he wants to wait for that flower to bloom to click that photograph. And there is a team leader whose overall mission it is to get the entire team safely up to the peak, right? So very classic analogy to what would happen in a marketing meeting setup or a marketing team. The team wants to get somewhere, but each individual person may have their own personal agenda or objective attached to it. So as the game goes, each person is given specific information that might help the team make the decision whether they should stay in the camp or proceed to the next camp. And that's a decision that they have to make. What is funny is that they fail in that simple game. And they fail in that simple game because they don't share all the information that is available to them. Everybody has common information. 70% of the information is common across team members. So there's a 20-30% information that is unique to the doctor, to the environmentalist, to the photographer, and so on. But they don't know that it is unique. And it's incredible that they don't share. They don't share the information. And that gets a team to be appreciative of the importance of sharing information, and hopefully such simulation exercises will make at least the awareness, raise the awareness of the issue, and the hope is that eventually the organization will share internal information. Then there is an aspect of implementation, and in this phase, I think we are all geared towards working towards an objective, right? So we kind of make sense of actions, inactions to drive to a particular objective, often not spending enough time to see if there are any unintended consequences of our action. In fact, we are so clever, we have even coined a term in case they happen, collateral damage, right? So I'd say, I'll try and look up my post on the what could go wrong meetings. And I feel that there is a need for this sort of meetings to take place in the first place, so that once you make a decision, after we have dwelled on days and days of figuring out how to get there, what the plan should be, how the implementation will work, I think every decision demands at least some merit in trying to figure out what could be the unintended consequences. A drop in your price of a brand which might help you drive sales, increase profitability, whatever, is great, and you start implementing that change. But what could be the unintended consequences of that change? Have we thought about a decline in the morale of our sales force because our brand doesn't have that equity anymore? And how would we counter that impact? Likewise, there are, I mean, this is obvious, but sometimes there are some not so obvious changes, because you might prescribe to one theory and make a decision, without realizing that there are probably other counter theories also in existence. As an example, everyone knows about, I'm talking about pricing, another example, everyone knows about a 99.99 kind of price, right? Great stuff. You put up, you decrease your price from $10 to $9.99, get a spike in sale, and there's a theory behind it. It'll all work well. But there's also a counter theory that suggests that in general, consumers tend to have a slightly lower quality perception of a 999 price than a 10 price. So there are many counter theories in place as well. And the point I'm trying to make is when you get down to implementation phase, or even before that prior, you need to think of unintended results that come in. And there are ways and tools to do that as well. Lastly, and this is the focus of our discussion, when you're talking about strategy, you're talking about deciding which route to take. You get into the meeting, you discuss with the team, because you know what, 2 heads are better than 1. Well, not always. 2 heads are better than 1, assuming that everyone works very well together and builds on the knowledge. But that rarely happens because it's very natural for us to have a group think riding on in this meeting. And today's session, we are going to demonstrate how a very simple tool can get us past this group think. Like I said, each one of these phases has a ton of tools available for you. It just demands being aware that these sort of tools are indeed essential, because training on how to conduct yourself in a meeting is very important. Knowing these tools will help you get better meetings. Better meetings will result in better decisions and success and growth for everybody. Right? So today we'll do a little bit of play to try and see how such play can make groups a little bit more effective. Groups are ineffective sometimes because just don't have the environment to get a group to work very well together. Most common, some individuals may not even feel valued enough, may not be able to express, may not know what to share, and even if they do, they may not be very well understood. So you need a technique that gets past all of these issues. This is just common human behavior or dynamics, and what I see in this region, it's even more heightened. You know, you do have such issues even more exacerbated in this region in Asia than in many other parts of the world. So, with that heavy dose, it's playtime. So what I would suggest is, have you used all of the boxes you used? I think each box is sufficient for like 4 people. So, as everyone has, I don't have enough boxes for everybody, but I want to make sure that we make use of most of the boxes here. So you guys have one. Is there anyone sitting there? Can someone join this just for the play? So we have 3 people using a box. We have 4 are good. Sorry, you don't have one now, but let me see where you can join. One of you could pull a chair and join this if you don't mind. I'm going to run out. Okay. 4 people can use one box with ease. And I should have about 9 boxes. So I should be able to accommodate about 36 players. Okay? There's one there behind.
We've got
There's one here. One there, one behind, right? Four. Okay, so to start the play, you got to do what all kids do, right? And some pieces will fall over, but my colleagues are kindly has offered to pick up and okay, Guys, there are two ways I could have done this. I could have gone on and explained the Lego Serious Play, which would have been extremely boring. But we're going to play and then you're going to see where it goes. Because I don't think you trust me enough as of now to believe everything that I say, right? So I'm going to demonstrate some things to you. But I need some good, playful action. Everyone's ready? Everyone's had their Legos poured out? I am going to put up a slide and I'm not going to entertain any questions. Okay? Just read what is there on the slide and follow. Got it? Okay? There is an intended level of ambiguity in the task. So cope with it and deal with it. Okay? So I'll need to time you all as well. This is quite a challenge. Give me a minute. Okay. Build a tower with something interesting on top. Use only one color. Each person builds his or her own tower and uses only one color. Go. Okay, you have 2 more minutes. You have 2 more minutes. Guys, just hang on. Listen, I always forget this, sorry. You will be judged not just on how tall the tower is, but also how stable it is, okay? And you have the last 45 seconds or so to complete it now.
Oh, it's possible.
So it has to be tall and stable, okay?
I forget something on top.
And when I say stop, stop. Okay, stop. Stop. Please stop. Stop. Okay. Great. Good job. If your tower allows it to, without breaking up, can you just hold your tower so everyone can see the tower that you've built? Well, so what I see is what I see every time, right? Every time I ask people to build a tower with only one color, I end up seeing different types of towers, not just with the color, which is a function of how many Lego blocks you have, but also in terms of the shape, size, type, and everything associated with it. And what does that tell us? What does that show? It shows that we are very, very different people, right? And we need to remember that. We need to appreciate that. We need to recognize that we are all very, very different people. The second thing I observe is that any kind of change that I try to introduce in the setup is not very sportingly taken on board. I said, halfway through the exercise that I want the tower to be stable and tall. And while not all of you, but at least some of you were just like, oh, I wish I had said this earlier. That's how we react to change in any situation as well. We must sort of remember that, right? Anyways, enough of philosophy. I'm going to stress test the tower. And maybe that one with the interesting thing on top looks really interesting. So I'm going to stress test the tower and really see whether it can.
I would call that an unnatural force.
It's very sporting. Most of the time when I do that, people cringe. They do the ahs and the oohs. And then you can very nicely make my third, if you could help me put it together. Then I can very nicely make my third and final point that people don't like their babies to be kicked and crushed. People don't like their ideas to be thrashed. And that is a third thing that we should remember when we engage in these meetings, right? So in a very simple introductory exercise, so as to say, I think we have used a simple act of Lego to now create a very good environment to take on the next task. Everyone has come on board now, all the Lego players, knowing that you're very different people. You know that change will happen. You will hopefully be a little bit more appreciative of each other's opinions. And remember, you guys don't even know each other, right? So in a split 3 to 4 minutes, you've sort of created a good environment. And now we will carry it even further. The next thing we do is we try and take a seat. Take a seat. The next thing we do is to use the Lego tower or Lego model or Lego whatever model you've built to start talking about an issue or a problem or a point of view using that model. And by the power of metaphors, I can, or any of you can pick up any tower and talk about anything in life, right? You just have to be spontaneous, you just have to be creative, and you will do it. Now, to get to this stage, you need to be primed really nicely, you need to be in the right mindset, you need to have a real issue that you can relate to, that you can talk about. None of these things hold true for most of us right now, but we will still make an attempt. We will make an attempt to use the tower that you've built to help us talk to this issue. Why is marketing challenging for you? Use your tower and tell your story. So can anyone give me any one tower, and I will put myself to test to see if I can answer this question using your tower. Okay. Marketing to me is very, very challenging because on the outside it looks goddamn so simple that even my daughter could put it together. Simple and straightforward, but it has its nuances and its intricacies as can be explained with all of these things jutting out. And sometimes the unexpected happens. You think it's blue, but it may not be as blue. But as you progress in your career, you reach a stage where you know everything that has happened. You kind of sit on all these issues that have happened and look forward to better times and better judgment. That is the biggest marketing challenge. So that is not to be cowed down or bogged down with all the nuances and challenges of marketing, but to use that as a learning step as you progress to become a great marketer. Can, right? So you can use this tower and speak to the metaphor. Now, how much of what I said is just made up? How much of it is really what I feel? When you play with Lego, and this is not me saying it, this is the science of Lego saying it, you are actually thinking with your hands as well. You know, we assume that we just think here and just whatever we feel, we say. But it's beyond that, right? You can think with your hands when your left and right hand go in terms of building this tower. Because in a natural Lego exercise, I will first give you this challenge. And you will build to this challenge. You will take the Lego blocks and not build a tower. You will just build a model. It could be a model of anything. And as you dip your hands in the Lego and pick up the right pieces and put pieces together, magic will happen. Because unlike conventional thinking, where you'll stop and think, what is marketing challenge for you? You'll stop and think about the model and then build a model. That's not how you go with Lego. As you become a very serious, pun intended, serious Lego serious play practitioner, you will do both tasks almost parallelly. You will think of the problem and you will build. You will not think of the model and build the model. That's not Lego serious play. Lego serious play is in action, in motion, where you're putting up the Lego pieces together, and something in your heart, something in your mind, something in the way your hands work with each other, which, by the way, results in your left and right brain coordinating much more rapidly than otherwise, that because of your hand movements and hand coordination, that gets you to do more than what you think you could. That gets you to a higher level of expression in the first place itself. And then the usage of metaphors takes you beyond the bounds of language to talk about something else that you never would have spoken in that line. So although I have sort of retrofitted this exercise, I do believe that what I said, there is some element of truth in it in terms of what I believe, right? So that's the power of Lego. Now I'm going to ask at least 5 of you to talk to this challenge. And it's important not from the testing you, I'm not here to test anybody, but it's important because I won't be able to go to the next exercise to demonstrate something more if we don't get past this. When people hear your story, they will learn to use the metaphors. They will expand their metaphorical terminologies and so on. So could 5 of you just help me talk about your tower? Anyone to go first? Since I broke your tower, you could take this opportunity.
So, in these times, I think the natural environment in the world is rapidly being.
So I'll just do one small thing for you. I will try to see if I can build a quick. I need to learn this myself. Just give you some time. Use this as a pointer. Point to the model and make your points.
Okay. So in this day and age, the natural environment is being destroyed at an ever more rapid rate, and creating a very alarming situation for us going forward. And I feel that the dark color of this represents the kind of that dark aspect of progress, of cities, of tower blocks being built with the destruction of the environment. But maybe within this, there is hope we could actually greenify our environment, and that's represented by the flower on top of the building, or the plants on top of the building. That there is actually opportunity still, even though it seems that we're destroying our planet with concrete or with chopping down trees. That actually everywhere there is still maybe opportunity to bring nature and back into our environment.
Excellent. Is there any meaning in the base?
It is to make it more stable.
Anything in particular about the color? The choice of color, it's slightly different.
I thought it looked nice.
Okay, so could you help me repeat his story?
Sure. So we're living in rather dark times, given the way that our natural world is going at the moment, due mostly to human progress, and so. The dark color of the blue on top of this very solid block, which is for stability, is to sort of represent that as we build, things are getting a little bit harder for everybody. But at the top of this statue to progress, there's a green flower representing that there's actually still hope, in that we can build sort of sustainable structures, both institutions and sort of human structures as well, that it doesn't need to look so bleak.
Are you happy with the playback?
Because it's even better than what I said. You must be a marketeer. Yeah.
That's nice of you and that's great. But what I'm trying to ask is, was your story, your original story, played back in full?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to make one last point here. A couple of things happened, right? he was able to fully express himself using a model in a third person. The way he was questioned or the way he was probed was very soft. Did you have any meaning in this? Is the question that I asked. I was not too harsh or in the face, right? And she was able to play back his story word for word almost. And the reason why she was able to do that is, on due credit, she's a great listener. But beyond just being a great listener, she was able to play it back because there was a model. She was speaking to a model. So the brain would remember that model and associate all the words that you had with what you said with the 3D structure. It becomes so much more easier. In fact, it becomes so much more easier that 6 years down the line, you will still be able to remember it. Because when you try to remember it, you will remember his model first, and then the story will just come to life. We use notes. We take a lot of notes in meetings. Nobody remembers what you said. And if you don't remember what you said, you don't feel valued enough. The next time you won't want to talk because you say something, boss doesn't even remember what you said, right? So a very simple tool like this, unleashed in the right manner, allows each individual to fully express themselves because they have started building using their hands. They have spoken to their heart and something else has come up. They have been given the power to talk beyond language with the usage of metaphors. They are talking to a model, so in a way they are distancing themselves from it, so they're able to say a little bit more than being seen as, this is my opinion. This is almost like the model suggests. There's a slight priming that happens that takes the distance away. And last but not the least, the entire audience is able to capture that story and everyone feels heard. A very simple tool. We'll just ask maybe one more tower story. So we just get to hear a little bit of more metaphor. So so that I feel a bit more confident that everyone can speak to the metaphor language. Any other person who can talk to their tower? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi everybody, my name is Alex, and I just made my own pointer.
Very good.
Yeah. So like, as everybody can see, like, firstly, I choose the orange blocks to make my tower, and there's a reason behind it. It's because I feel like orange is like a mix of the yellow and the red. But I feel yellow probably a little bit too bright, and the red is probably a little bit too aggressive. So that's the reason I choose orange. It's kind of like warm and touching, and I also can attract people's attention. And then here, I believe like even people far away can see here the most eye-catching things is the two wings here. So the reason why I put the two wings here is because firstly, it's like big enough. It's like if we build this tower, everybody like from really far they can see this tower. And moreover, the wings can also show the whole of this building. It's like this tower, I don't know like any companies behind it, and it's actually growing and can actually bring bright future to everybody. And I cannot show here, but I believe like this thing can also be made by the solar panels. Can also like represent like my companies can actually quite environmental friendly. So I like to make this whole tower is more like a symbol to show my companies like welcome, warm, but we also care about the social environment and want to contribute more to the society. And that's my story about my tower. Thanks.
That's great. Can you expand on it a little bit so that it answers the question of why is marketing challenging for you? And I know you just said a lot of you are not from a marketing function, so it's not a very strong or fair question to ask, but I didn't know that. So can you talk a little bit about why it could be a marketing challenge for you?
For this tower?
Yeah.
I think...
why is marketing challenging for you? Tell that story using this tower.
I'll tell the story. Let me think of it. So I think like first.
Sorry, I'm putting it on the spot.
No, it's okay. I will try to give my best shot.
Sure.
So if we use this tower to answer like why the marketing is a challenge for me, I think firstly I'd like to start with the wings here, because I feel like marketing is like you need to put the meaning into something. Like here I have the wings here, but everybody can have a different ideas about it. Like just in my explanation, I have two ways to explain it. It can be the wing of hope, but it can also be the like things of the solar panel. So how can we deliver our opinion to others? I think that's the first really important thing. And the second thing is about, I think like everybody have different belief on the different things. For example, like here I choose the color of orange, and I see somebody see a little bit like confused, like really like this orange really mean that? So I believe there is a gap between my perception and others' perception. So you see the color, even like here I said, even the color can make things totally different. And then this turns out to the other part, like say the architecture part, it also can probably in the like for the marketing campaign, how we design the things, how the structure, everything goes. Probably from my perspective, everything is I think it's gorgeous. It looks quite good. But actually, when we put it in the market, people will think, oh, your tower, yes, looks fancy, but it's not work. It's like a campaign. Oh, this bonus sounds really good, but it will never work in the market. So I think that's how I use my tower to explain why the market is a challenge for me.
Wow, are you a marketer?
I'm currently take the sub track of it, but I'm actually from the management
Okay,
of
great.
marketing.
Let's give him a good big hand. We captured the key essence of marketing in terms of communication, design, and how one thing can mean so many of us, and we need to drive a consistent message. Great. Just have one last example, and then we move on. Anyone else? Anybody? At least the marketeers in the room? Come on. Team.
I would call myself a marketer. What's your question? Marketing challenging for me because it consists of many blocks. There's lots of kind of competing, conflicting needs that somehow you have to put it together into something that's attractive that people want.
Great. This takes a little bit of imagination and practice. Usually, the tool is there, but to prepare your team to use this tool is usually almost like about half a day or so. But once the team has learned to use the tool, every other meeting that starts, you could just go right bang on and throw the issue, and they'll start building the tower or building the model, I would say, and start talking to it. Right? So I'm trying to accomplish what takes half a day. I'm trying to get it done in like 15 minutes. So you might see some challenges in terms of how smoothly this can go. But think of real practice. In real practice, if you decide to use this tool for your strategy meetings, you would spend about half a day in getting everybody comfortable with the Lego pieces. You would make sure that the Lego set is a little bit more diverse than what you have here. This is almost like a kid's Lego set, but there are different pieces that can be added to this Lego set to help the metaphor exercise. So for instance, this wheel could be the wheel of progress, right? Likewise, odd-shaped pieces within the window of opportunity. So you could enhance the Lego pieces with special Lego pieces, which you could buy off the market. Visit the website legoseriousplay.com. You can buy a pack from that website, which has special pieces. I think you're holding one of the special pieces there, which is actually has a window, like a glass window, right? A transparent window. So that could be trust, that could be spirit of transparency, and so on. So likewise, once you get the right set, this is a kids playing set, like I have emphasized now. If you buy that set, you have those special pieces which will help the metaphorical exercise. On top of it, if you have worked with your team to train them and get them familiar, trying to get models built on various issues, they will get comfortable with that exercise and learn to speak the Lego language. Once you've done that, every other meeting will be a breeze, because you'll enter the meeting and say, okay, this is a meeting to figure out what the strengths of our team is. Go build a model that reflects the strength of the team. 3 minutes to build a model, or 5 minutes to build a model of the strength of the team. 2 minutes for everybody to speak. 2 into whatever, 20 people, 40 minutes, 43 minutes. Everyone has an opportunity to speak and be heard and be remembered. And the next 15-20 minutes go in summarizing all of that, saying, okay, let's now put all these ideas together and what's the common theme that comes up. And within an hour, engaging 20 people, you have answered a key question for the business, which is, what's the strength of our team? What's the strength of our brand? Which, in a traditional meeting setup, would have resulted in a classic 80-20 kind of a situation. 20% of the people would have spoken out loud. The rest would be keeping mum. There would be no information sharing. There would be issues. Some people may speak, will not never be remembered, and all the struggles that we have in a meeting. Last but not the least, they would walk away saying, strength of the brand, really, must be kidding. Right? But in this case, they can't. They are more engaged because they have been part of the process, they have been heard. And yes, not all of their ideas are accepted. That's fine, it's business. But at least they know that they have had an equal opportunity to speak up, heard, and be understood. And as a group, the group has come together to say these are the strengths of my brand, right? That is the power of Lego. So I'm sure now you agree that it's not only created a safe environment, it's given everybody a chance to express themselves, feel valued, fully understood. And the note to share should have been across as well, because like I explained, you're working with your hands and you might not know what to share, but it comes up when you're engaged in that process. So I'll stop here for a minute and see if you have any thoughts, comments, or questions for me.
Yeah. Have you seen this used to get consumer perspective, for example, not internal meetings?
Yeah.
Maybe consumer thoughts on certain things. Is this something that is used also?
Yes, we have used it with consumers as well. But most consumers are normal people. Marketeers are the ones who are more complicated. So consumers can speak much more freely. There are several other tools and techniques we can use more effectively with consumers. Not that this can't be used, but I have seen this being more easier with a senior audience, a senior corporate audience. Because it's very difficult to tell them, imagine you're a dog, and talk about the characteristics of that dog, the strengths of projective techniques that we usually use become very difficult with the more intelligent you are, the more smarter you are, the more corporate you are, the more difficult it gets to break the ice and get people to speak. But this Lego pieces make it very easy because you can quickly build up to something and express yourself. And it's the same common language. And the beauty of it is once you know that exercise, then you keep repeating it. It's just a nice, effective, efficient thing. So to your question, yes, can be used with consumers, but probably there are a lot of other equally better or even better tools, or maybe even cheaper tools to go about doing so. Any other comments or thoughts?
We come across a lot of executives, especially senior ones, who can be very jaded, and they're more often than not dismissive about any tools, let alone Lego. How do you try to break your ice with them? Because they inherently may be opposed to the whole idea of having a tool in the first place. Tricky one, but I don't know if there's an answer.
Yeah, good point. I try not to convince because slides or talk to convince usually doesn't work. I try to actually do the exercise itself. So even a simple tower gimmick that I did sometimes is powerful enough to at least get them to listen to the next thing that I have to say. The tower gimmick costs me just like 15 minutes time. So that could be a starting point that gets them at least interested in saying, looks like something interesting going, I'll explore further. I will show you some cases of real work that we have done as well, and that builds credibility to say that, yes, it looks like something I should consider. Yes.
Do you use this often in your pitches to your clients, or is it depending upon the brief and if this can be a fit, like this tool can be a fit?
This doesn't help us to sell, or we don't use it in the pitch process to sell.
Explain anything.
We usually tend to use it in senior stakeholder engagement to help us clarify what the issues are.
Okay.
Or sometimes when we make a presentation, we don't know whether everyone is understood, right? I mean, it's not a test that I've given a lecture and then I make all of you all take a test and I figure whether you all have understood or not. Likewise, in a marketing presentation, the CMO spent $100,000 on a project. I stand up there and make a recommendation on how the brand strategy should unfold. But how do I know whether they have understood or not? I'm making an assumption. In those situations, I might use it to say, to build a model of what you have taken out and what you will do with this result. So I get a sense of, so it's used to support things that we do, primarily before we embark on a project to clarify, and after we deliver a project to embed those findings.
So there are specific types of meetings which are more suited for this. You don't just deploy Lego in every single meeting.
Yes, the specific type of meetings that are most suited for this is when you think that the answer is very obvious, but it may not be. So if you are working in a brand team for 20 years with the same set of 5-10 people, and if you want to know what your brand strengths, current brand strengths are, you might think it's an obvious question. You might think we are all aligned, but you might not be, because you might not have given an opportunity for everyone to speak with their heart and their head, an opportunity to express beyond language, and an opportunity to be exactly understood. So this technique is most powerful when you think that the answer to the question is actually very simple, but may not be. Any other questions? Good questions. Okay. So I think this will be an easy slide for me to go through. Play creates a special environment. Building results in expression beyond speech. Metaphors extend the scope of expression, and models allow delinking from the person telling the story. We've all seen this happen, right? And this is where I was going. If I try to pitch this as this is what Lego will do, it will be all brick, and you will struggle to figure out what I'm talking about. But once you do a very simple exercise, it's all very easy to understand. I have two things to do now. We could actually get into another exercise, okay, and understand this better. I have a feeling that you guys are getting the gist of what I wanted to say. And the exercise that I have was trying to ask you to build a model that tells the story of a marketing challenge that you struggle to crack and explain why. And the rationale for having this exercise for me was, well, I thought Center for Marketing Excellence, out of 50 people sitting in front of me, 40 will be like marketers. It will benefit the school because they will know what the current marketing challenges are so that they can structure the curriculum, benefit the students, and so on. Slight worry is that we might not get a lot out of this exercise, is my base feeling. But more than that, I kind of feel most of the key points that I wanted to deliver have been delivered. And your great questions have just helped shave off any other finer nuances that I wanted to add to it. So I'm going to skip this exercise and go straight into talking about a few examples of instances when we have used this Lego play. Okay? I don't see any of you particularly disappointed. So we've covered this. It's so easy. And like I said, think about this, right? We're all strangers, and try to visualize that if you are indeed marketeers, and if I had indeed gone through that exercise, you would have been able to come up with a few marketing challenges very quickly. It takes you 3-4 minutes to build a model. A minute or so to explain the model, and if the props were here, you would have taken note of what you say, you would have merged as a group, and very quickly, within half an hour or so, I have taken the opinions of like 40 people and translated it into something meaningful for the team here at SMU. So I'll talk about some of our experiences. So this is about how Lego Serious Play helped us uncover sort of what I call the real sentiment in the team for an international payment brand. So we were working with them on some other project, and the GM of the market walks up to me and says, hey, you know what, Samy, my team has just been shown our future of e-commerce payments strategy. I walked them through the session, but I really don't know whether they have embraced that presentation, whether they have embraced the belief, whether they are really on to it. How do I figure that out? Right? And this is a classic question, the answer to which would have been simple, which is, you're the GM, you have stood there, taken the team through 2 hours, your slides are there, so let's look at the slides. The slides are self-explanatory, so fine, they would have got it. The traditional way to do it would have been to go and ask, hey, what did you think of the guy's presentation? But we didn't do that. We engaged in a Lego Serious Play exercise. The one thing I would say is that while I make it sound very simple, there are 2 aspects to this exercise from a facilitator's perspective. You've got to know what questions to ask, and you've got to be able to sense something beyond what you see and what you feel. I don't know whether I've sensed this right, because I just made a judgment call that I'm going to skip that exercise and move forward. That's a judgment I made because based on what I sensed in the room. So that sensing for a facilitator is very important, number one. Maybe I got it wrong, I don't know. But crafting the right question is also very important. And then observing what happens when they build, how they talk about it is also important. So it's not just get everyone to build a model and then you get an answer through Lego. That's definitely a part of it. But unless you have that ability to sense what is happening and read beyond what is said a little bit and connect the dots, you will not get to the answer. Because the answer in this case was about, no, they haven't embraced the strategy. They're actually paranoid. They're actually so paranoid about competitors and being so reactive to competitor actions that they forget that they are a team of an international, large, big payment brand. And some small startup fintech is not going to disrupt their world. They might create a big noise, but if the brand really, the big international brand really enmasses all the power it has, and they should have, given that they were given a strong direction by the GM on the future of e-commerce strategy, they will be able to plow ahead. But instead, the team was all about, oh, they have done this, what can we do? They had forgotten about who they are in a way. And this is a simple outcome from a 30-minute Lego exercise. Another instance is sort of the example that I gave you in terms of having made a presentation and really asked ourselves the question, have they got it? Will they act on it? So for a bank in Indonesia, we helped that LSP ensure that the entire marketing team understood and were committed to the call of action from the research study that we had done. So we made the presentation, got them to build models to figure out what it was, and then having heard them, we felt reassured that they had understood. So it was, the starting question was, have they got it? Have they taken everything that is there in the presentation? Do they understand the call to action? And from there to a point where we felt reassured that they are going to actually act on it because they've spoken through their model on what they've understood and they've outlined the next steps. So another example where Lego has helped. One more example is in helping a quick service restaurant brand here itself in Singapore in thinking beyond, getting a bit divergent and thinking how else can they build unique customer experiences. And the challenge here was that QSRs, the way they are, you can't really make a change just because you want to. There is an operational aspect to it, there's a marketing aspect to it, there's a product aspect to it, there's an architecture aspect to it. So it's almost like all teams have to come together to make even a very small change to the functionality or the process of a QSR. the whole process efficiency and the process structure is the heart of what QSR quick service brand like a McDonald's or a Burger King can deliver, right? You try and change that, not easy. So we embarked on a Lego exercise so that cross-functional teams work together, feel valued, feel heard, and talk beyond what they otherwise would have done to get into a higher plane, and then agree on what the new experience should be, right? Last example I can give you is for an international hotel brand, again here in Singapore, and this was again a cross-functional team, really getting past standard operating protocols in terms of how to help their guests, because hotels as such are all, is it your job or is it your job? It's very well defined past the SOPs, but often you get into situations where the connect between two responsibilities might not be this, might be this. So between two responsibilities, there is always a chance that there's something that slips to the crack. So if a customer is in this position, who should he approach, this guy or this guy? And if you have experienced any of the telcos here a couple of years back, you would have known what I mean. You call up the line and they say, this is, you've called the wrong number. They won't even transfer it to the right department, right? So it's in these situations where you work with those teams and figure out where do we think the pitfalls are? And if this situation occurs, how would we address it? So we use Lego seriously again to get them to get past those gaps and get to a level where everyone works really well as a correct, true team. So we've talked a lot about what I would say basic Lego, but there's an advanced version that you can take Lego to as well. Because all this time we were talking about how bad traditional meetings are and so on and so forth, and we've sort of hopefully agreed that you should explore different tools for different meeting agendas. But what happens one more thing that happens in meetings is we make decisions, of course, but often we don't spend enough time in digging through the deeper rationale of why we have made the decision. So yes, we have made a decision to drop the price of a brand as a team. But you may have done that because you believe that you need more profitability. You may have done that because you need more market share. You may have done that because you think that's just enough to not to erode the equity of the brand and you won't go any further. And when the discussion is made, you have made a right decision to drop the price from 10 to 9.99. But we have not spent enough time as a team to really uncover why. What was your deeper rationale? Why? Because me as a CMO want that 9.99 to happen. I have 3 people who say they're okay doing it. Boom, you go and do it, right? What's more to discuss? That's what happens in meetings. But the pitfall of such an exercise is you finish the meeting, you go out, and the situation changes. The situation changes that demands you to reconsider the pricing decision, because maybe a new competitor has come in, maybe something else has happened, and you need to reconsider the decision. So you need to go to a meeting again. And you need to discuss all the issues again. But had you discussed the whys, I'm not saying you would avoid that meeting, but the answer would have probably been more obvious. If all of you had discussed the whys and then agreed that the real rationale is 9.99 is okay, guys, but no more beyond that, because no matter what happens, we won't do it. Then you enter the next meeting with a much more better agenda, saying it looks like we need to improve our profitability, but we are constrained with 9.99 price because we said we don't want to do that because the collateral damage that might happen is far more because we didn't discuss that. So what can we do? So it's a completely different agenda to that meeting, other than just being hurried into a room like headless chicken and say, hey, now what should we do, right? So that's an advanced version of LSP where you can take it to almost real-time strategy, where you discuss the pricing decision, you discuss what impacts the pricing decision, how that pricing decision will impact some other things. Why are you then making this decision? You take all of that into account and think of a very complicated model with strings and everything attached to it. So you know a decision, you know the influencing factors of those decisions. It almost looks something like this. And you discuss and argue what happens, why it should happen, what do you think you should do, and so on. So you make a real strong decision by not just making the decision, but understanding the whys and the hows behind it as well. Sorry.
I was just thinking this look actually more like a 3D mind map.
Yes.
Anything else, right?
Yes.
I was trying to kind of correlate, understand that the $9 is 99 cents problem.
Yeah.
I was trying to correlate back how do I actually use these pieces to right? So sometimes the resistance to speak is, especially in our culture, you go into a meeting room of decades, right? So the challenge is you're resistant to speak. How then do you get people to overcome the part of putting their hands together, right? I mean, the idea is simple, yeah, you get your hands to work, but there will be people who just resist, whether they're just jaded by these gimmicks, right? So leaders doesn't want to participate. How do we overcome this kind of?
There is no easy answer. You have to invest in time. Like I said, I tried to do this in like 10 minutes. You probably need half a day. You need a nice
have you found it to be efficient in your practice?
Pardon me?
Have you found this to be, I mean, have you been able to do it efficiently?
All those cases that I discussed, of course, I couldn't do it in half an hour. I think I had to spend about close to 2.5 to 3 hours, of which nearly 2 hours went in the training exercise, and half an hour was actually the real problem. So a good 2 hours had to be invested in bringing the teams up to speed, getting them to open up. I had to make sure that I create a very stimulating environment, which is maybe a different type of a room and so on. And I think I may have one last answer to the question. I have to be a joker myself as well. So sometimes you have to, a facilitator is a key part to it. The energy that you bring in, the creativity that you bring in, how you are able to think on the spot creates a big impact. I'm sorry the picture is not of very high quality, but I think it makes the point. Exact Scene was a large technology brand. They are global team meeting up in one of the cities to discuss the future of their product and try and innovate. So we had R&D people in the room, we had sales people in the room, marketers in the room, different age band. We had newbies who were really gung-ho about technology and who knew where the world was going. They were using some of the devices. And then you had like very senior people. So when I opened up the session, I was getting worried about where this creativity and ideation will go when a couple of people who started introducing themselves went like, I spent 30 years at HP and product A, product B, product C, I have got patents to it and so on. So, I saw the look on some of the 20-something or 30-something people and I said, these guys are not going to speak up. These guys are not going to be in the act. How do I get them to contribute? So I dumbed down the session to a point, and there are some gimmicks that I did. As you can see, I'm lying on the floor in front of like CMOs and big R&D bigwigs, so that they were able to at least shed the initial barriers and then talk a bit more freely. It's a lot of effort, a lot of energy, but can be done. With that, I think I'm done. That's my email address. My colleagues are just out there for any questions. There's a feedback link I was told to support. I'm here till about 2. I think you have to vacate the room at 2. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. Oh, I love this slide. I hope I was clear.
Logistical question. So the kids, do you order them online or are they also available in the store?
So the practice of Lego Serious Play actually started within the Lego company. So a couple of years back, kids were not playing enough. So electronic devices that attracted attention. So Lego thought as a business, they really need to reinvent themselves. Don't worry about the pieces, we'll take care of it. I've got an army of very friendly staff who's going to help me clean up. So just leave it there. So a couple of people, senior designers at Lego were tired of the way meetings were happening and sort of worked with the university to design a methodology that would help work with hands and then they had all the Legos in the world. And that evolved into really thinking what else they could do. This is why they went beyond thinking into specialized kits. They were really protective about it. So you can't buy this pieces just off the shop. I think in Singapore you cannot. So you have to go online and order it from Europe or from the main head. But I think in many other cities around the world you could possibly go to a store. The pieces are expensive. especially, I mean, each kit is highly overpriced, I must say. I don't have the prices there on the website, but it is quite steep. And the struggle really is when you facilitate a session, you typically have 10 people in the room, so you've got to have enough Lego emulation to give it. And then what you say when the demo walks up to you and says, can I take this ball for my So which is why I said 3 times, my daughter will be very upset. Very good question. So his question is, how do you know you're asking the right questions? So when things, clearly I didn't ask the right question now because I didn't have enough visibility on what the profile of each of the attendees was. So I made a big out there. But in reality, you phrase the question, you really think about it, you bounce it off with other colleagues, you get them to experiment and build and see what comes up. And with a trial and error, you decide what that question is. But some of the key things that you want to look at in that question is that you can't make the question very clear. There has to be some bit of ambiguity in it. The moment there is some bit of ambiguity, you stop thinking very logically and rationally and you start thinking beyond that. There has to be some level of personal thing in it. So talking about what are the challenges in marketing, they work. But what are your personal challenges in marketing might work a little bit better. There has to be some bit of provocation in it. So instead of saying, what do you like, what really gets your heart to skip a bit might be a bit more provocative. So there are some few tips and tricks on how to phrase the question. But really the right way to do it is to phrase the question, discuss, and actually experiment before you embark on a session. Because the heart of the session is that one question, right? The last point I'll make is that often, although you are building to the key question, you often have a dummy question up front so that people get used to the metaphors that can help them solve the right question. So my right question was something about marketing learnings or challenges that I wanted to pass on to SMU, right? But I started with a more dumbed-down question on describe the tower, what marketing means to you. So at least you start learning and knowing what metaphors to use. So these are simple things that you need to bear in mind. The rest just comes from experience. Any other questions? Like I said, I'm here, so if you want to leave, the session is done. So if you want to stay and chat, we're here till 2 at least.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for attending today's sessions, and of course it's our honor to have Samy here to share with us about this interesting topic. You can still keep in touch with him, and on behalf of the university, may I take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming, and Samy as well, and this is a small token of gifts from us. Thank you so much. Thank you.